So how long have you lived in East Central Indiana?
I've been living in Central Indiana. Well, actually, I originally am from Gary, as far as Indiana is concerned. So that's northern, of course, and but Central Indiana. Ever since I came to Terre Haute to live, ever since about 1993.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm from the region too, so it's
okay.
pretty cool. I'm from
Right.
Valpo.
93. So that's 30 years. Yeah. Yeah, about 30 years now. You know, some out, some in the penitentiary.
So would you say you grew up here, or would you grow up in Gary?
Well, I grew up in Gary, and I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Yeah.
Would you care to explain what your childhood was like?
My childhood, I had a pretty secure, safe childhood until I turned maybe about 14, you know, and then life kind of blew up, and you know, I had to move to Mexico, Tijuana, Mexico, and I lived there from 14 to 16 years old. So I stayed there for 2 years, and then I returned to Louisiana after that, and from Louisiana we made it to Gary. Yeah, and I've been in Indiana pretty much off and on ever since.
Were you just living with family during those time periods?
Yeah. It's always been my mother and my father. Yeah, and my little brother. So yeah, we were close-knit family.
What was your family like?
My family was, like I said, we were close-knit. We were supportive of one another. You know, so, but once the financial situation became different, and we moved to Mexico, then my parents couldn't be as hands-on with me as they were prior to that. Mm-hmm. So growing up in the slums of Tijuana, you know, when you don't have a strong parental structure because they're trying to chase the dollar, then things can get a little bit haywire. Yeah.
I'm guessing moving around a lot, school must have been more difficult. Would you care to explain maybe like your experience in school?
School was a little bit difficult. I mean, when I was a kid, before going to high school, I pretty much was regularly on the honor roll, you know. But after that, like I say, once that parental structure fell apart due to economic situations, it became more difficult for me to stay applied in the school system, you know. So then, and plus when I went to Mexico, I had to, I was sent back in like, because I couldn't speak Spanish at that time. So I was put back in elementary. So here I am, this big kid with like 6-year-olds. I couldn't even fit in the desk, you know. So so it became, you know, and I wasn't really focused on school because it all seemed weird to me. But I did learn Spanish, so I did gain a language while I was there. But as far as a curriculum for education of a teenager, it kind of wasn't there, you know. Yeah. Even when I came to Gary and finished my senior year, well, I didn't finish my senior year. I actually was a few credits shy from graduating. But by that time, I was so used to being on my own and running the streets that school wasn't a priority anymore.
Would you care to elaborate maybe what you did then instead of school? Like you mentioned, like working on the streets.
Well, in Tijuana, I was just running the streets. It was me and a bunch of Mexican guys, Mexican boys, and they embraced me. And, you know, we had a nice little camaraderie, a little brotherhood. So it was just about being a community of young boys running the streets together. We didn't go to school. We would fight other groups of neighborhood boys from other neighborhoods. You know, we would put all our money together to buy beer. You know, just hang out, go to parties. You know, anything a typical young boy without much guidance at that time. Those things that they would choose to do. So, You know, that was that part. But then when I became like 16 and went to Gary, it was a little different because those gangs that I was around, those neighborhood boys that I was around, it was a little bit more more hardcore. And what I mean when I say that is, you know, now I'm being exposed to drugs. Now I'm being exposed to weapons. You know, I realized that it was a little bit more serious out here in Gary, and but that camaraderie was there. We all were connected to each other, and we had deep affection for one another. You know, as far as brothers go. So, you know, I guess that's how my time was filled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah.